It's time to level up. We're going to get into some slightly harder fraction addition work today. Are you ready? Let's get started. What's up, you guys, and welcome to Grip EDU. I'm Mr. D as usual, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so that you can get every one of our new videos and help others to find us too. If you're watching this video, you've probably already passed the Level 1 Fractions video and have a basic understanding of how to add fractions with unlike denominators. This video will be slightly different because this time we're going to talk about what's to do with larger fractions, or what's to do when your final answer ends up as an improper fraction. If you're ready for adding mixed numbers, which gets even harder, click the link up here. Let's review the steps for adding fractions. Step 1, set up the problem vertically. Step 2, find the least common denominator. Step 3, create equivalent fractions. Step 4, add. And step 5, simplify if needed. And those steps will work exactly the same for what we're doing now, but you'll see in a bit why it's a little bit more complicated this time. You ready to try one? Here we go. Nelson has 2 pieces of yarn. The first piece is 7/8 of a foot long, and the second piece is 3/4 of a foot long. How long are the pieces of yarn all together? Basic addition story problem, right? He's got 2 pieces of yarn, and we're trying to find out their total length. So let's start by setting it up vertically. Now, we can't add these fractions until we give them a common denominator, so let's list our multiples and figure that out. For our first denominator, 8, let's list a few multiples. 8, 16, 24, and so on. And for our second denominator, we'll go 4, 8, and oh, there's the common multiple, 8. So each fraction is now going to be written as a fraction over 8. Here's a little tip, by the way, for those of you who are looking for a shortcut. One of the ways you might look for a common denominator is to ask yourself, can one of these denominators go into the other one perfectly? If the answer is yes, then that bigger number will be the new denominator. For instance, if your denominators were 5 and 20, you don't even need to list the multiples because you know that 5 goes into 20 perfectly. So the least common denominator is going to be 20. Okay, now back to our problem. We're ready to create our equivalent fractions. 7/8 is going to stay 7/8 because the denominator didn't change. If the denominator changes, you need to change the numerator. But if the denominator doesn't change, you can keep the numerator the same. For our other fraction, we can see that 4 times 2 will get me to 8. So I'll do that to the top number as well and do 3 times 2, which is 6. Okay, now time to add. We have 7/8 plus 6/8, which will get us 13 over 8 because we don't add the denominators. For this problem, we ended up with an improper fraction, which means our answer is going to be more than 1. We can turn this into a mixed number with some basic division in our heads. If you had 13, how many groups of 8 could you make? 1. That's our whole number. And how many would be left over? 5. That's our numerator. The denominator will stay the same, so our final answer is 1 and 5/8. Let's try another one. Okay, for this next one, let's do 4/5 plus 7/10. But let's fast forward to the end of the problem. What you'll see here is that we've ended up with 15 over 10. Now, let's turn it back into a mixed number now. 10 goes into 15 one time, and there'd be 5 left over, which will be our numerator. So we've got 1 and 5/10 as our answer, but 5/10 needs to be simplified. 5 and 10 are both part of the times 5s, so we'll divide each of those by 5 to get our final answer, which will now give us 1 and 1/2. What I want you to see is that sometimes there are extra steps that are needed at the end of your addition problem. So make sure that you check for improper fractions and simplifying. You don't want to do all that work and then trip at the finish line because you forgot to simplify. All right, practice time. Grab a paper and pencil and let's go to the whiteboard. For our first problem, I've already set it up vertically, so we're ready to find the least common denominator. let's list our 20s and 8s. For 20, we've got 20, 40, 60, 80. I'm just counting by 20s, right? For 8s, we've got 8, 16, 24, 32. No matches yet. Well, that means we need to just keep going. So after 32, we'd have 40. And boom, there's our match. Let's circle it and make it our new denominator. To fill in the numerator, we'll see how to get from 20 to 40. 20 times what makes 40? Well, that'd be 20 times 2. So let's also do times 2 to the top. And now we've got 18 over 40. For our second number, we need to see how to get from 8 to 40. And we can do that by doing 8 times 5. So since we did times 5 on the bottom, we'll do the same to the numerator. 7 times 5 is 35. Now we have 18 over 40 plus 35 over 40, which gives us a sum of 53 over 40. Now don't be scared because these are large numbers, but it is improper, so let's fix it. It's not going to be as scary as you might think. 40 goes into 53 one time, so that's our whole number. And there would be 13 leftovers, so that's our numerator. The denominator stays the same. Now we have 1 and 13 over 40. 13 and 40 don't share a common factor besides 1, so it's already in simplest form. Okay, for the next problem, we'll do 5/12 plus 5/6. Okay, let's list our multiples so we can find a common denominator. Let's do a few 12s. 12, 24, 36, and now let's list a few of the times 6s. 6, 12, and oh, there's the match. So our new denominator is 12. And by the way, this is another example of finding the least common denominator by asking, can one of the denominators go into the other perfectly? Since 6 can go into 12, I could have already known that 12 was going to be my common denominator, and that would have helped me skip a step. All right, let's get those equivalent fractions now. 5/12 can stay exactly the same because the denominator didn't change. Remember that if the denominator doesn't change, neither will the numerator. For the other fraction, 6 times what gets you to 12? 6 times 2, right? So we'll do times 2 here and times 2 here, which makes 10 over 12. Now we're ready to add. So we have 15 over 12. But of course, that's an improper fraction, so let's fix it. 12 can go into 15 how many times? 1. That's our whole number. How many leftovers would there be, or what would the remainder be? That's our numerator. And the denominator will stay the same. We're at 1 and 3/12. Are we in simplest form? Do 3 and 12 have a common factor? Are they part of the same multiplication family? Yes, they are. So we need to simplify. Let's divide each of those numbers by their greatest common factor. And 3 and 12 are both part of the times 3's. So now we're at 1 and 1/4 as our final answer. If you'd like to try a quick check on this skill, you can get it from the link in the description of this episode. For more math tips and tricks, including the 1-minute version of this skill, click the links that you see on the screen here. Until next time, I'm Mr. D. Thanks for watching.